So to me, elk hunting is up here and everything else is down here somewhere. No other animal is capable of doing what an elk is to you. Whenever something is screaming at you, here I come, here I come, here I come, before you can see it, it is capable of melting even the most seasoned bow hunter's metal. When that bull was coming in, pointing his face right at us, screaming, it's all you can do just to keep yourself together and try and be patient and wait for the right shot to present itself.
Bowhunter. Presented by Ram Trucks, built to serve.
So we just got here this afternoon. We weren't even gonna go out. And Steve said, if you get here early enough, I got one pinned down. And sure enough, we got here, unloaded our stuff, pulled the truck up, and there's 2 bulls bugling up on this ridge. So Steve's got us in them. And we haven't even started. Right away. That's how it's supposed to be done, son.
Danny and I have been friends for a little over 20 years now, I think. And so we've guided together, we've hunted together. I've been guiding here at Ute Trail Guide Service since I was 18, so that's a long time.
Joining Danny on this Colorado elk hunt is Bowhunter contributor Matt Palmquist.
That's still swirling like crazy.
We've been hunting in late September, and so the elk are in full bore rut. So the primary tactic that we want to use is hear them bugle and go after them. And if they're bugling, we just keep moving forward until we get a shot, hopefully. Or if not, we'll set up and do some calling.
Steve had what he thought was about a 320 bull located over here that was coming down into a meadow to water every evening with all of his cows. We moved in there. It was tough because the wind was really playing games with us and going back and forth. And as is often happens with elk, if there's a ridge between you when he's bugling, he might be really close, but his bugles sound like they're a long ways off, and that's what was happening to us on that first evening. The bull was making his way with his cows right down the next draw. Not very far from us at all, but it sounded like he was way up on top. So when we finally backed out of there that evening and we were just breaking out in the meadow to go toward the truck, we crossed the little ridge we were next to, got next to this other draw, and he screams right there on top of us. It blew the hats off of us. It was awesome. The bad thing was we didn't find him in that spot, but it was a terrific beginning to this hunt.
Better Bowhunter. Brought to you by Lancaster Archery Supply.
Hey everybody, this is PJ Riley from Lancaster Archery. On this week's episode of Better Bowhunter, we're at the ASA in Fort Benning, Georgia. I'm here with Hoyt Pro Donnie Thacker. And Donnie, you wanted to talk to us today about the mental side of target archery, how that helps you then when you get in that tree stand.
Yep, it doesn't matter if you got a big buck coming up on you or you're shooting for $20,000. Nerves get the best of you, you get weak, you lose the feeling in your hands. And to me, the biggest thing as a hunter, as a shooter, is being ethical. So I use 3D archery and tournament archery to calm my nerves and learn my tendencies when I'm nervous so that I make a good shot on a big buck.
And so what have you learned from the tournament side that you then notice when you're shooting?
When I'm shooting
at a buck
tournaments and it's down to the nitty-gritty, it seems I get weak. I feel like I'm pulling against the back wall, but I'm not. So that'll cause your arrows to go high. So when I have a big deer coming in, I make sure I'm extra strong and to pick a spot instead of aiming at brown and just letting it go.
And how do you check that? What's your physical check that a bow hunter can do to know that they're being as strong as
you
they
can kind of feel the wall. So I'll load up and then before I shoot a deer, I make sure that I'm all the way back, and then I center my peep. So,
Gotcha.
I've also noticed I have a tendency to come out of my peep. I'll kind of scrunch a little bit when I get nervous. So I like to have a bright sight ring, something I can make sure my peep is centered when it's low light conditions, when the big bucks are moving.
Right.
I can make sure everything's centered and I'm strong against the wall, and it leads to result in a good shot.
And like you mentioned, all of this is stuff that you have to do when you're in that tournament situation. You got money on the line and all that.
Yep.
But that translates over then. And so it must be where I'm guessing that because you shoot tournament archery, that helps you feel
it helps me. There's no way to duplicate the nerves that you feel at a tournament or shooting a big buck fever, you know. Shooting big bucks helps me shoot tournaments. Shooting tournaments helps me shoot big bucks.
All right, perfect. That's what we like to hear. Thanks, Donnie. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
This segment of Bowhunter is brought to you by Lancaster Archery Supply. This segment of Bowhunter is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve.
Steve had told me that this place was full of elk, and I got up here and just took one look around. It's majestic, it's scenic, it looks like elk country.
Our bow hunt for elk continues near Salida in central Colorado.
For the last week, we've been hunting with Ute Trail Guide Service with Joey Taverna. He's been my guide all week, and it's just gorgeous elk country. You have aspens that are changing colors and dark timber bedding areas intermingled with large meadows or parks. It's just about as scenic as it can be.
To me, it's just how undisturbed this property is. I mean, it's truly one of the bigger ranches in the state. It's the prettiest place in the world to see the stars is right here. And that's what I love. It's just undisturbed. And that's my favorite part about this place.
Hunting elk in the Rocky Mountains is very physical, or can be. I've noticed this week at Ute Trail Guide Service that they have terrain and features that can accommodate just about anybody. But if you're going out west to hunt for the first time, get in the best shape you possibly can, and then probably get in a little bit better shape. I admittedly worked out some before this hunt, but once I got here, it was not enough.
This morning, my guide Steve decided to take us to a place with no elk. And we didn't hear a doggone thing. But Matt's guide, Joey, decided to take him into basically the zoo. Matt said it was amazing.
The key to success, in my opinion, is being aggressive. The second morning of our hunt, we were in the middle of so many bugling bulls, it wasn't even funny. It was just about the most amazing hunting experience one can ask for when hunting elk. And we were aggressive and moved forward and tried to get in position. Hunting in the mountains is always challenging because the wind swirls constantly and you're always trying to get the wind in your favor. And as you're moving, undoubtedly it'll change. You know, the goal always was to have the wind in our face and be going after the bugles. And
yeah, no, this ain't gonna be easy. I'm telling you, they're gonna bed right in here.
there was one moment where we nearly shot a raghorn bull that in hindsight, I should have pushed forward and really been more aggressive.
Every situation is different. And to me, when I go back to why I love elk hunting so much is that's why, like, every single situation is different.
Dead On with Randy Ulmer, brought to you by Hoyt.
One of the things that's absolutely critical when you're tuning your bow, setting your bow up, is getting perfect arrow flight. Now, historically, they've wanted us to have a little bit of knock travel, so it's actually above level. However, I like it perfectly level. Now, when I say level, I mean perpendicular to the bowstring. Now, most people use a bow square to do this. I don't like that, and some people just don't have a bow square, so I'm going to show you a really easy way to get your arrow perfectly perpendicular to your bowstring without using a bow square. Now, one other thing while we're talking about perfect arrow flight is I like to have the arrow as close to the pressure point of my handle as possible, because then you don't have that seesaw action between the pivot point and the arrow. Theoretically, we should have the arrow going right through the pressure point of our hand, but obviously we can't do that. So most people want to put the arrow exactly where the plunger buttonhole is. I actually like to get it as close to the shelf as possible, and that's one of the reasons I use low profile fletching, so I can get that arrow down. So I've set my bow up so that the string is perfectly level. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the arrow on the string, and then we're gonna let it hang, and you can see that it's hanging freely. So we're gonna put the arrow rest in position. Now I've already put the arrow rest in position as low as I wanted to have it, so that it's as low as possible and as close to the shelf as possible. Now we're going to hang this like a plumb bob and move it until the arrow is just touching the groove on your arrow rest. There we go. So that's perfectly perpendicular, and it's exactly what we want to do, because the Hoyt bow with the binary can system, HBX can system, has perfectly straight knock travel. So the arrow is going to be pushed perfectly straight, perpendicular to the travel of the string. So once I get the arrow so it's perfectly perpendicular to the bowstring, I go ahead and mark the spot. Once I get the marks on the string, I know exactly where to put my D-loop or my knocking point. Now, if you want perfectly straight knock travel, you really need to use a D-loop as opposed to a knocking point. That way your release is in a perfect alignment with your perfectly aligned arrow.
This segment of Bowhunter is brought to you by Mossy Oak. This segment of Bowhunter is brought to you by Rhino Blinds.
It's very quiet out here. We're gonna do about a 15-minute set. Just do some soft, light cow calling. Maybe a real light bull vocalization, but see if we can't get anything that's up here on top in these nice meadows to come and investigate.
As often happens with a lot of my hunts, it started out with a lot of action, and then the action came to a grinding halt. It's like I have this cloud of bad luck that follows me around. There was a full moon. It was really hot in the middle of the days. They were bugling like crazy last week, Steve said. And of course, when we get here, that full moon moves in and it kind of shut them down during the middle of the days. And it was crazy because some of the places that Matt went to during the day, they had a lot of action, but we were going up into these areas and there was a ton of fresh elk sign. The elk were there, but with that full moon, it can make it hard because they're out doing their breeding and all their rutting all night long, and they're going to bed early and not coming out of their beds until late.
There's one, he's not gonna be too far when we get to this corner. I have a feeling we're gonna be seeing some elk.
Our last morning of the hunt, at this point, we know we need to be aggressive. We need to go. And in fact, you know, Joey and I hadn't talked about it, but in my mind, I was already thinking we're gonna be hunting all day and trying some cold calling setups and just doing what we have to do to fill our tag on the last day of our hunt with Joey and Ute Trail. Fortunately, we didn't have to do that because right from the get-go, we were in elk and there was bulls screaming, and we moved our way up into these rutting elk. We were moving forward and trying to get close to get a shot at one of the big herd bulls. There was a herd bull on the left, a herd bull right in front of us in the middle, and one on the right, and they kept kind of running back and forth.
When it comes to calling, you know, like this morning I didn't use a bugle, and maybe if I did, I might have pulled one of those bigger bulls in. He might have come and want to run us off, but he also could have took all his cows in the herd and took off. So it's a gamble every time you do it, and the way we did this morning, we used some light cow calls, and it turned out good.
We just made a move about another 20 yards because the bull was out of sight for a minute, and here he comes running back in, and all of a sudden I catch movement right to my right, and there's a nice 5-point bull. And on the last morning of the hunt, I'm thinking this bull's gonna be perfect. So I kind of forget about the other elk and get in position to try to get a shot at this bull as he comes. And I was able to draw back, but he stopped right behind the tree. And then he starts walking again, like a rookie mistake. I didn't put a call in my mouth, and he come walking by, and I was unable to get him stopped. And so he ended up getting by us. I didn't get a shot. Another great hunt with Ute Trail Guide Service, and Joey did awesome calling and getting that bull to break off. We'll get him next time.
The Moment of Truth with Kurt Wells, brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve.
The great debate between light versus heavy arrows continues and probably always will. But an arrow manufacturer that just celebrated its 100th anniversary may have the solution. Easton's newest hunting arrow, the Sonic 6.0, may be the answer. This high-velocity arrow shaft is built for speed, but it can also be built out to a heavier shaft with strong front-of-center balance for increased penetration. The stiffest version of the Sonic, the 250 spine, weighs just 9.5 grains per inch, while these 340s weigh just 7.8 grains per inch. In a standard build, you have a fast, light arrow that's perfect for twitchy deer and pronghorns. If you're after bigger game, you simply install brass inserts to increase your total arrow weight and the FOC. Adding heavier broadheads and luminox can also add to the momentum your arrow generates. These arrows are built with Easton's AccuCarbon uniform spine process, which means you're not messing around searching for the seam and building your arrows around that inconsistency in spine. What else is special about the Sonic 6.0? Well, they are the first and only arrows I know of that are factory fletched with a 3-degree helical orientation with Easton's bully vanes. I've always built my own arrows partly because factory fletched arrows have all been straight fletched. In my opinion, that's not good enough unless you shoot only field points. If you shoot fixed blade broadheads or even mechanicals with any kind of a profile, you need rotation in the flight of your arrow. Can you get by with a straight fletched arrow and broadhead? Maybe, if your bow is perfectly tuned and your release and grip are perfect, but you better hope the wind isn't blowing. Rotation stabilizes your arrow, and up until now, you've had to fletch your own arrows or have a pro shop do it to get a helical fletch. Some may complain that rotation robs arrow speed, but stability is a far greater asset, especially in adverse conditions. Leave it up to Easton to lead the way on helical fletching straight from the factory.
This segment of Bowhunter is brought to you by Ozonics. This segment of Bowhunter is brought to you by Browning Hells Canyon.
It's been pretty quiet in here. We've got a full moon. It's hot. Those are factors that you can't do anything about. These bulls in here have been quiet. They're here. First 2 days we were here, they were ripping. But they've had lockjaw the last few days. So we're just trying to make it happen. Bottom of the 9th.
We came in from the morning's hunt on that last day, and man, I was pretty low. But Matt and Joey came in and said where they had gone to, they had all kinds of action. They had a bunch of bulls that were rutting together, and Joey said, we ought to go in there and double team this place, see if one of us can't get it done. So me and Steve head up in there that evening, and after not too long, we hear bulls bugling up in the distance. So we start working our way up in there toward them, and the wind was being real squirrely like it was every day. We kind of determined that it was going this way, that way, and this way a lot, but it wasn't going one particular direction a whole lot. So we worked around to the left, up around these elk that we're calling up there. And we're just breaking out of the trees, and here's this 5-point bull that's standing out in the middle of an open park, and he's feeding down in our direction. And I was like, holy smokes, this might work out. Well, he's just about to break out, and he's well within range. He's just about to break out into a position where I'm gonna try and shoot him. And once again, we feel that wind hit the back of our neck. So we moved on up through there just a little bit more. Get up on the edge of that main herd, and all of a sudden, a 6-point bull breaks out after a cow just off to our left. He runs up in the trees in front of us. I'm calling, Steve's calling, we're talking to him. He's talking back and forth with us. He's bugling, but he's chasing this hot cow up in this little aspen patch, and he won't really come down.
Danny was working his call, so I moved back away, and the herd bull started screaming. And as soon as the satellite 6 let out his bugle, we both hammered him with cow calls, and he just came in on a rope.
He got down to about 80 yards. I shut up, and I turned around to Steve, and I was just telling him, step on it, Steve. And Steve starts ripping on those cow calls back there. That bull committed.
I couldn't see him coming in. I was down a little bit, but I saw him right when he closed the distance to Danny, and I knew get him close enough, and Danny's pretty deadly, so.
It was a good shot and a good bull.
Good job, Steve.
So all along throughout this hunt, I was really hoping that I'd be able to finish up just a little bit early, because my son, who's a senior in college and playing his senior year of college football, had a game only about an hour and a half from here on Saturday afternoon.
Here he is, guys, right here.
No. Oh, yes! Yes, buddy. Good job. I really wanted to make that game. And when we hadn't punched our tag before then, I had called him and told him, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to come down for the game or not. It's our last day of elk hunting. He said, Dad, don't worry about it. Stay there and kill a bull. And I really didn't want to miss any games this year. So it was a hard decision for me. And I knew going into it, if we didn't get it done that day and I missed that game for nothing, I was really gonna kick myself. So when that happened, man, the feeling of relief, not only that we got one on the ground, but I didn't miss my son's game for just nothing.